Welcome to this Monday edition of On the Pin Live. This is March 9th. Welcome to On the Pin. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pin. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, Zepbound, Compound, and I have another kid home from school sick today. Not another kid, but same as Friday. And so just doing the dad thing, thankful for the flexibility to be able to do that. But I'm curious how you all are doing today. A lot of stuff in the news for GLP-1s, and we're going to get into all that. But before we do, let us know that you're here in the chat. Love to welcome you by name. Jennifer Nebraska's in the house. Welcome, J-Neb. How are you today? I hope that you're feeling well. And in Nebraska, is it as beautiful as it is in the state of Iowa? Because today is absolutely beautiful. Laura's in the house today. Welcome, Laura. Thank you for being here. Lots to discuss today, and I want to get into the news. Now, we had a Bloomberg report on Friday of last week. Hambone's in the house. Welcome. Coffee and Disney Vacays is in the house. Lucy is in the house. Down in the Dale is in the house. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Amy, hi. How are you? So, an interesting report from Bloomberg this past Friday where essentially it sounded like Novo Nordisk and Hims were coming together on a deal for Novo Nordisk to promote the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy injections, which is crazy because there, as you know, was a lawsuit going on. A couple of weeks ago, Novo Nordisk filed a lawsuit against Hims and Hers Health, basically alleging that they were violating their patent. And we talked about how this is really something that is unprecedented. We haven't seen Novo. We've seen them file hundreds of lawsuits at this point, but we've seen none of them actually go after the patent. This was the first one to happen that actually went after the patent. And so a lot of folks found this far-fetched, the idea that the two companies would be coming together again, but it is true, it was confirmed today by both parties that the lawsuit has been dropped, that they will be coordinating together to market Wegovy and the Wegovy pill. Essentially, Hims and Hers will stop marketing compounding GLP-1s. They're going to transition their current customers to Woodkirky's in the house. Welcome. Sue the Dude's in the house. Michael Clanton's in the house. And we saw that Hims and Hers announced that they're going to transition all their current customers that are on the compounded versions of Semaglutide to the branded versions, which was absolutely huge news. So that lawsuit has been dropped. Now, there were those in the community that were really hoping that Novo would have to actually run through a patent challenge. And I think this is an indication that there was never really an appetite for that. This was, I think, and have been surmising all along, that this was more of a play to placate to their investors who are like, how are you not going to defend your patent against the largest compounder in the world who's being so flagrant and so aggressive? And ultimately, we saw that lawsuit was dropped. And this partnership was made. Now, there was an interesting, and I think if you're an investor in Novo Nordisk today, you're irritated, right? But if you are an investor in Hims, you're pretty happy, right? Because Hims kind of gets pulled from the doldrums of their low stock price. There was an interesting take from Brigham Bueller. Now, Brigham Bueller runs Ways to Well Health. He's been on Rogan. He's kind of representative of the compound industry, and I find what he has to say sometimes very interesting because he is to big pharma, or he is to little pharma as maybe Dave Ricks is to big pharma, right? Just kind of like a spokesperson in a way, kind of a de facto spokesperson for the compound industry. I don't know if he would necessarily agree with that. Probably he would say he's more of a mouthpiece for his own businesses, but I think he represents compounds in general when he speaks. He says, with all due respect, the outcome of this was very predictable. I don't know that many people actually, at least not overtly, predicted this, but I liked what the rest of what he had to say. Hims was never a compound pharmacy. True, they are a marketing platform. It says it's a multi-billion-dollar tech platform. The ad campaign that triggered this entire crackdown created consequences for legitimate compounders across the country. And while they were already positioned to pivot into partnership with Novo Nordisk. Meanwhile, the pharmacies actually serving their patients are the ones left dealing with the fallout. That's not protecting patients, that's protecting market share. Hopefully, as this all settles, legitimate compound pharmacies that follow the law and care for patients aren't punished for the actions of a few bad actors. Today, Marty Makary, the FDA chief, this is a retweet of the FDA uh, Secretary Marty Makary, said, glad to see Hims will stop advertising unapproved compounded drugs instead sell FDA approved products through its new partnership with Novo Nordisk. Importantly, they will keep the affordable no price increase and limit compound GLP-1s to rare FDA compliant cases. I'd like to congratulate both parties on this deal following our recent action. Also glad to hear Novo will withdraw the lawsuit against Hims, a win for the American people whom President Trump has charged us with putting first. Interesting statement, because he leads his statement with, glad to see Hims will stop advertising unapproved compounded drugs. I think that gives a little bit more color to what we've seen come out in the last couple weeks, which I think the media has completely gotten wrong. Surprise, surprise, right? I think we've gotten it right here. So we were actually the first. On the Pen was the first to break the story on the internet 2 weeks ago, 2+ weeks ago, maybe it's closer to 3 weeks ago, that the FDA sent out a score of letters to telehealth companies and compounders. And a lot of these letters were sounding the same, a lot of them going after marketing and the way that these companies were positioning themselves from a marketing perspective, oftentimes using the phrases like same active ingredient as Ozempic or Mounjaro, et cetera, in their compound advertisements. The other thing they went after was how oftentimes with compounders, you'll see the vial that will have the name of the compound, the name of the telehealth company rather on the vial, when in fact, as Brigham Bueller pointed out in his tweet here, they're not a compounder at all. They're not making any medication at all. They're actually with Hims, you might argue that to some extent they are. I believe they actually do own their own compound pharmacy, but to the extent that the medication, the compound semaglutide, is coming directly from, let's say, any telehealth company, it's usually coming from a third-party contracted pharmacy, 503A or 503B. And so all these letters, these 30 letters, were about how they were advertising. It wasn't, hey, you don't have the right to do this. Hey, you can't compound. Hey, you can't give patients an option that meets their needs that isn't commercially available. It's like, you can't market it the way that you're marketing it. And a lot of the media has actually blown that up to essentially say, the FDA is coming after compounders. No, the FDA is coming after the way that prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals are advertised. And they've actually been pretty consistent across the board, because at the same time these letters went out to these compounders, Novo Nordisk got a letter too. They got a letter in terms of how they were marketing the Wegovy pill. And so really the FDA, and I think this points to some of the things that we've heard from RFK Jr. before he stepped into this position, is this administration really has a problem with the way that prescription drugs are marketed in the United States. And I think there's a lot to be said about that topic, but I think that the FDA is actually being consistent here. I don't think that they're going after compounders, and we've been saying this for a few weeks. I think that they're going after the way the prescription drugs are marketed in general. Sue the Dude says, Dave, will they stop advertising of a compound but still sell it? So in their press release, Hims and Hers press release, essentially they said they stopped short of saying that they won't use compounded semaglutide at all, but more so they will start to transition their patients to FDA approved branded medications, and that they will stop advertising compounded semaglutide. But to the extent that that they will stop compounding at all, it doesn't sound like that's the case. And so really, I think what you see in that concession there is that Novo Nordisk did not want to defend their patent. If they wanted to defend their patent, don't you think they would have demanded that Hims and Hers in this sort of arrangement would have not compounded semaglutide at all? I don't know. I mean, obviously they have to give their patients an off-ramp and a chance to transition to the branded medications. But it's interesting because, if compound semaglutide is so unsafe, but you're going to transition patients to the branded version of semaglutide, like, are you going to make them start all over in their dosing because what they were on wasn't the same? I think this will be all kind of interesting to watch unfold strictly from a semantics point of view. And I think a lot of the things that you see from pharma in terms of their hesitancy to, or not hesitancy, but their aggressive campaigns to shut down compound often work against what they're doing in reality, right? And so everything's couched in patient safety. Everything's couched in this idea that compounds are intrinsically unsafe for patients. And at the end of the day, really, their actions speak more to capturing and maintaining market share. I think you could make similar arguments for compounders, right? Where they're using this 503A sort of loophole to get people on the compounded medications, but I don't know that it's completely necessary for all the patients that are on compounded medications in specific doses to necessarily be there. I don't know. But both sides are going to speak from the perspective of what protects their industry. And that's why here at On the Pen, we're always trying to sort of decipher the news and help you as patients make sense of what's going on so that you can just have a better, more intelligent conversation with your doctor. So that's the goal here. So if you find the information that we share here at On the Pen useful, helpful, beneficial in any way, my ask is simple. Would you please hit the subscribe button down below, hit the thumbs up button as you're watching, and we go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're a little bit late here today. I was in the gym this morning and then making sure I was getting some good grilled chicken protein in after that. And I'm going to get into my health journey a little bit here in a couple minutes, because I think this is something of general interest with the community. But a few minutes late, but we go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So you can tune in for that. Subscribe if you're watching on X. Make sure you follow along on X, where we share a lot more. We share a lot of the late breaking quick stuff that I don't have the time to write a Substack article about, or I don't necessarily have the time to do a video, but I fire off a tweet. If you want to stay in touch, even if you're not really on X that much, definitely go subscribe over to our X platform. We're trying to get the On the Pen handle, but right now we're Man on the Pen on X. We put a lot of news, breaking news over there on X, so make sure that you join along over there. Really appreciate all of you hanging out with us today and being here on the live stream. Sue said, I'd like to know if Novo's Legal has ever met with Lilly's lawyers to discuss a joint approach to compound pharmacies. I think they faced a lot of scrutiny in the way that they sort of collaborated to keep the prices of insulin up, and there was actually action that was taken by the government against them on that. I think formal conversations, I don't know. But very interesting. Why don't compounders get FDA approval so their products are marketed as biosimilar drug? Now, this is an interesting topic too, Patty, because just this morning there was an announcement from the FDA that they're loosening the requirements for biosimilars. So if you're going to have a biosimilar drug, a generic, to a branded medication, they're sort of loosening the requirements, which is an interesting subtopic of conversation that nobody except On the Pen is talking about right now. And the reason that it's interesting is because right now at the debate of compound semaglutide, you have Novo out there basically saying we make our semaglutide from a recombinant yeast-based process. The compounders are not using that same base of semaglutide that we make from yeast. They're making it from a chemical synthesis. And because they're doing that, it's intrinsically untested, unsafe, and inherently bad for patients and needs to be wiped off the face of the planet. Now, this move by the FDA actually says the opposite. It's basically saying it doesn't really matter how you make a biologic or a medication. What matters is that the end result is the same molecule as the branded medication. And right, so they're looking to ease restrictions, and we'll have more on this as time goes on, but it sort of undercuts one of the largest arguments that Novo Nordisk has, and also could be interesting in terms of how the whole back and forth between the FDA and Eli Lilly is going with the topic of retatrutide, which Lilly is trying to get classified as a biologic as we speak. And the FDA is saying no, and here's why. And the court basically said, your here's why is not super adequate, Lilly, so we need you to go back and, the FDA, your no is not super adequate, so you need to go back. Even though you have the authority to do what you're doing here, you need to explain yourself better. And so that's sort of where we are in that process. But will this have any bearing on that sort of argument back and forth, because if you're listening and you're like, well, how does that impact me? Well, retatrutide is not even out on the market. You can only get it gray market. The reason it matters to you is actually because if they get it classified as a biological and are successful, it can never be compounded. It cannot be compounded, period, full stop. Second is they get extra years. Instead of 5 years of market exclusivity, they get 12, and the drug itself will command a much higher price in the marketplace. And I think that's Lilly's goal. As we've already heard them state publicly many times, they're reserving retatrutide as basically the next level of therapy beyond tirzepatide. So the tirzepatide would be the first line of defense. And for most people, it would work. But then for people with severe metabolic disease, BMIs above 40, et cetera, then those folks would be the folks that would qualify ideally for retatrutide, which ultimately, if they get classified as a biologic, would fit their plan to have basically fewer patients probably on retatrutide, but maybe commanding a higher price. So we're watching that closely, and we've literally been watching that topic for over 2 years. So if you're not subscribed here, all of this stuff matters to you. If it doesn't matter to you today, it might matter to you tomorrow. Tune in by hitting the subscribe button, hit the like button down below. Sue the Dude has been a member of the On the Pen community for 37 months. How has it even been 37 months since we've been doing this? That is insane. Thank you, buddy, for your service to me. And Sue is a great, more than just a viewer or a moderator on the channel. He's a great friend and a great human being. And so, Sue the Dude, I appreciate your 37 months of membership to the channel, and I appreciate the equal amount of time in friendship. Thanks, buddy. What will the pricing be for patients that are transitioned to brand? So they're going not above. So you'll have the platform fee for Hims and Hers, which I can't remember what it is. Let's say it's $150 a month or something like that. But the branded medication, what I've heard is they are not increasing the price of the branded medication based upon the normal cash pay prices for that. So you got your $399 is like your ceiling on your price for that. You can go as low as $149 if you're starting the pill, up to $399, I think, is the highest for even the highest injectable. Now, when we see 7.2 Wegovy Plus, when we see that come out, I think that'll come out at a totally different price point. But Vanity Reigns is in the house. If you missed, Vanity and I did a live stream together on Friday. Go back and check that out if you missed it. It was a great conversation about anhedonia, anxiety, depression, all of these things that can come along with GLP-1s from time to time for a segment of the population that takes them, especially, I believe, at those high doses, especially for a long period of time. If you've reached out to me, sent me an email about that, thank you very much. I've been reading all of them. I just can't keep up with all of them and getting them back. Ruben, I love you too. The kids are generally feeling better. Still have one home today, but hopefully after that, we're feeling better. And the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. It's going to be 67 degrees today here in Iowa, and I am super excited for just being out in the sun. I got an amazing workout, and I'm going to transition this conversation into my personal journey, because I'm on a sabbatical during the time of Lent from GLP-1s. I'm not taking any, and I've been off Mounjaro now for a solid almost 3 months. We're pushing very close to 3 months I've been off Mounjaro, and I got to say that's after 3 years of being on it. My honest assessment is that I'm feeling a level of clarity. I'm feeling a level of energy, of renewed focus, optimism. Just the sun is shining brighter and the birds are chirping louder. That may be because spring is here, so maybe that's not fair to Mounjaro, but I'm feeling better than I was on those high doses. So the challenge is I'm not getting any medication right now. So I'm really having to pay attention to my blood sugars. I'm really having to pay attention to all that, my diet. But I'm committed with renewed hope and optimism to just a routine that has me feeling better. And I'm going to get into that here in just a minute as soon as I catch up with the comments. Let's see. Becky and Mindy both say that the live with Vanity was great. Glad that you were able to tune in for that. Let's see, Research Pulse, which again is one of my favorite follows on X. If you're over on X and you're not following Research Pulse, BioInvestor 24, I think it is, Jen Kanoosh. Those are three of my favorite follows on X. I love following those because they're even like the next level nerd above me on these topics. He says he or she, I don't even know. I'm presuming he. You can't go for a biosimilar when it's still patent protected. Biosimilars only when a patent has expired. Yeah, so that's the process, right? You have market exclusivity for I believe 5 years on the molecule. During that 5 years, you can challenge a patent, which is really we've seen that happen with tirzepatide. We've seen it happen with semaglutide. They get shot down every time. But if you win that patent challenge, then you can proceed with filing for a biosimilar. I think we just saw maybe our fourth liraglutide biosimilar approved in the last week. I haven't even broken this news, but I found this with the FDA last week. There's a new company that will be making liraglutide. Who cares at this point? It's liraglutide. Obviously, people have generally moved on to bigger and better things. But if you're looking for generic FDA approved versions, the liraglutide should be coming down in price. But thank you for sharing that research. Pulse Vanities had someone on Manjaro email me regarding why they chose both brand and gray market peptides. Very interesting. We had a great conversation with a gentleman who really changed his life with the gray market. People are like, why would you have somebody on your channel that uses gray market peptides? Why would you even give credence to that? You're supporting gray market by having, listen, no, I'm not. I'm not supporting the gray market or a marketplace in general by having someone on who's benefited from it. I'm supporting that person because that person is a member of this community, is a person living and dealing with the disease of obesity. And just because his financial situation isn't the same as mine or yours doesn't mean that his story isn't as worthy of being told. And so that's what it was about. There are literally thousands of people in this community that use the research versions of these medications, whether you think it's right, wrong, or you're indifferent. It's the reality. And I want to hear from those people. And so we heard from Ben this past week. I think there's over 10,000 views on that on Twitter. I think we've got another 5,000 over here on YouTube. If you haven't checked out that interview, it's very good. I highly recommend that you go check that out. I feel like it was a really even-handed interview for Ben. So thank you, Ben, if you're in the house today, for sharing your story at On the Pen. Really, really appreciate that. Now let's get into my personal journey, shall we? Now, here's a quick reminder. Hit the thumbs up button if you're watching here on YouTube, and make sure that you share, make sure you subscribe, do all the things. But I want to share a little bit about my personal journey because this is 3 weeks, I believe, close to 3 weeks off of a GLP-1. And it's been an interesting week because last week, you may know, I started a intense workout regimen. I'm talking 4 intense workouts. I think the longest was a 2-hour workout. I have a buddy who, and I did an interview with him about 3 or 4 months ago, an NFL football player. So he has an off-season program that he's doing. I'm literally doing that right beside him. I feel like I'm doing the little itty bitty child version of what he's doing, but I'm doing it right alongside with him. So we're doing an intense 2-hour workout, lots of weightlifting, lots of circuits, lots of intense cardio, all of those things. And so I'm super grateful to him to have a friend that's willing to include me in that. But I have never worked harder in the gym since maybe 2015 when I was in CrossFit, and really, really enjoy just getting back to it and working hard. I have gone back to the TRT. So I've taken 3 doses of the TRT. Now I'm taking literally like a microdose daily. I had some anxiety after the first one. The second ones I've just been taking right before bed. I don't have time to get in my head about it. I just take it and zonk out. Might not be the ideal time, but it's the time that I do it, and I've been not having any of the anxiety about it at all. So I'm feeling just energized and great. So the gym has been great. I'm going to I've been feeding in my macros. I've been feeding in my CGM data and my workout data, all stuff that I can pull down off of my apps into ChatGPT. And I'm going to just give you the ChatGPT basically rundown of the workout program that I am doing. I'm trying to think. I feel like I had I'll just have it do it again. Talk amongst yourselves. So I've been feeding everything into ChatGPT in terms of how the journey has been going, right? And so I figured like I have a really hard time remembering like these little numbers and figures when I'm talking GLPs all day. The last thing I can remember is like how many calories, what have been my macros, what has been my blood sugar. And like, so I've just been feeding it into ChatGPT. So here's what we have. 3 weeks after stopping GLP-1, here's what the data actually shows. Dave Knapp, who lives with type 2 diabetes, it says diabetes. I don't know why it spelled it that way. It seems rude. Has averaged about 2,250 calories, 2,250 calories per day, with most days closer to 2,000, while continuing heavy training that sometimes burns more than 1,000 active calories. His weight has hovered in the mid to high 280s with a current monthly average around 285, including a small gain in week 1 that is most likely explained by glycogen replenishment, training recovery, and sodium-related water shifts rather than fat gain. His continuous glucose monitor shows an average glucose of 125 milligrams per deciliter, which is about 76% of the readings in range, which indicates relatively stable metabolic control during the transition off the medication. Taken together, the numbers suggest the body is still adjusting after coming off GLP-1, with the scale currently reflecting normal training and hydration fluctuations more than any meaningful change in body fat. So that's the ChatGPT rundown of what is going on in terms of my workout. But I'm telling you, I'm working hard. I'm working really hard. Looks like maybe somebody started a poll in the comments. George Wallace says, how about a quick poll? N for name brand, C for compound, R for research. I love that poll. C, B, and C, C, N, N, paying out of pocket, C, C, N, and C, C, N with insurance and without. Very interesting. Yeah, a lot of different answers there. But we don't see any of the research, do we? Do we? R for research. I don't see any R's. Oh, yeah, no R's for research. So yeah, it's been great to, I feel like, have some of the research folks come into the channel and to hear from them and to hear their stories. But there's a lot of people that are have transitioned on TikTok. If you'd ask this question on TikTok, a lot of people going from C to R. C to R is something that you're seeing quite a bit in the community, just in terms of just being done with the rigmarole when they find out they can, for a very small price, stock up on like 10 months, 12 months of medication. They tend to do it, but not something we endorse here at On the Pin. Have you studied where Atkins fell short with high protein? I have not studied that. Specifically, Atkins was high protein, high fat, right? I know the challenge for me. So the way that I've been focusing is to hit about a gram of protein per my goal weight, which is around 200 pounds. And so I'm eating around 200 grams of protein a day. And that's what I shoot for. And I try to shoot for that most days. I try to get most of that protein from a whole food source. So from chicken, from like, grilled chicken or a lean steak or something like that. But I haven't studied specifically where he fell short. But I find that does a couple things. Helps to build muscle. That's what I'm trying to capitalize on the workout. Like the old me, I think the old diet culture me, who it was hardwired that if you were working out, you would go as long as you could before and after without eating, because right, you wouldn't want to undo what you did in the gym. And I think that's toxic mentality. Your body needs to be fed. I mean, biology tells us that if we want to grow muscle, if we want to build a stronger, leaner body, we need to nourish it with the appropriate things. So I've been making sure that I eat before and after a workout, not in high quantities, but prioritizing protein before, prioritizing protein after, to give me the energy. I know that getting some carbohydrates is important on both ends of that too. It's a challenge for me as a diabetic to really get too many carbohydrates, because then my energy goes in the wrong direction. And so I am trying to definitely manage my diabetes in all of this. And so I keep my carbohydrates relatively low to keep my blood sugars relatively low. That said, I think I'm still averaging, probably 150 to 200 carbohydrates a day, which isn't low carb by any means. But I find when I balance the carb intake with protein and all of that, then I don't get the spikes, and then I can maintain the energy in a way that I want to maintain my energy throughout the day. So, uh, oh, what was that? That was not a intentional post. StreamYard, always looking for ways to get people on StreamYard. So they've added this little button. I thought it had to do with the monetization of the video, and it's just an advertisement for them. I think I'm paying you enough money, StreamYard, than to pimp your product. It was regarding high protein raising insulin, so some people couldn't lose the weight. The right diet is so individualistic. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have heard that before in terms of, your body has a way, glucogenesis, right, of your liver turning macronutrients into sugar. And if you over consume protein, and I think probably one of the biggest contributors to that is these, like if you're going to have a protein shake and you drink a couple of them and you're just trying to slam a bunch of protein in the sort of the non-natural, non-whole food ways, your body doesn't know what to do with that. Your liver is going to convert a lot of that over into glucose, which is going to raise your blood sugar. So there's certainly a point where it becomes like a bit ridiculous in terms of being counterproductive. I think for me, mostly I'm trying to have the building blocks of building muscle there. And I'm also trying to have the satiation, because I find for me that satiety really comes from protein. If I'm hitting 200 grams of protein a day, and that is like one of my main focuses in my diet, it tends to keep my overall caloric intake lower. So it keeps me away from a lot of those processed foods or a lot of those add-on things that add up calorically, like sauces and stuff like that. I can eat protein pretty well, straight, without needing a lot of extra stuff. I did find some interesting sauces that are low calorie that I've been pretty impressed with so far, if you want to see them. Now, I've long been a fan of G Hughes, GHUGHS. Now, I think that guy is from around where I'm from, because I saw him speak once, but it's a low calorie sauce company. Pretty good stuff. But this company is kind of doing something similar, and it's called Taste Flavor Company. And then this is what they look like here. I'll throw a link in my link tree directly to them, so we can have the Amazon affiliate link posted in our link tree. But that's buffalo blue cheese, hot honey sriracha, garlic. Like, this is the brand. Like 10 calories, 5 calories, 15 calories for one of them. So these are really good. Vanity says, what's your carb and fat intake like? So the carb goal that I have is around, I think 150 to 200 is what I shoot for, because that's where I feel the best. And then fat grams, I'm trying to essentially keep the fat grams under like 85 or so, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes I go a little bit higher. I have noticed like the two things that I could really rein in from a macronutrient standpoint are my sodium. My sodium tends to be really high, and my fat intake. Those would be two things on my macros that I think are a little bit harder for me to control based upon my natural inclinations. So yeah, maybe Hambone could keep track of the poll, but I think Hambone could also start a poll. That's one thing. I can't do it from StreamYard, but on YouTube you can actually start a poll. It's kind of interesting to see. Amy's always looking to sauce it up. Ari's using G Hughes sugar-free barbecue sauce. Yeah, that's one I like. These ones are different. I like sriracha. I'm a big fan of sriracha sauce. And so the honey hot sriracha is really good. I enjoyed that. I had some of that with a steak the other day. And then there is another, what's it called? Oh, another company that I've really been enjoying now. I'm trying to get on as an affiliate there, but it's called True Nature Meats. And True Nature Meats is really good in terms of like they par cook meat. And so you just kind of finish it off in a skillet. It's frozen. And it's delicious. The steak is super high quality. There's steak, there's brisket, there's chicken. It's all been very good. I literally have not found a single dud. In fact, one of our favorites as a family lately has been the pot roast. I don't know if it's the family favorite or if it's my favorite. But I've been making it a lot because I like it. And I do a lot of the cooking around here. So that's something that we've been doing. So these are kind of ways that I've been trying to hit these numbers. Now it's interesting because my face is puffy. Like I sit down today and I can see like my face is puffy. And even for the first time on my Shape-a scale, I got a gray, which means, the last 10 days of tracking have been averaging a higher weight. I'm assuming that's all from the drastic changes I've done with the working out and its water weight. So I'm not going to stress about it. I know I'm doing the right things and glad to be doing the right things. Appetite suppressant after stopping Zepbound. If you go to my link tree at otplinks.com, Donna, right here, otplinks.com, down in the middle, there's a link to some orally bioavailable peptides. If you sign up there and use code OTP10, you can save 10% off of Can't Wait. Can't Wait is a peptide I cycle on and off of. It's an orally bioavailable peptide, so you take it in the morning, and it works on lowering your leptin, raising your leptin, which is your satiety hormone, and lowering your ghrelin, which is actually your hunger hormone. So it kind of works on suppressing the appetite that way. Really good stuff too. Dave, curious, can you use details on how ChatGPT to get that summary? Are you tracking food with another app or using chat? So I'm actually tracking I'm tracking on a separate app. I'm tracking all of my macronutrients and everything that I eat. And then I am tracking all of my activity with my watch, which I hate wearing, by the way. I pretty much just put it on for my workouts and then I take it off. I hate wearing these big clunky Apple Watches. I'm thinking about getting the Aura ring if anybody has that. And I am tracking my glucose with my my CGM. And so basically I just screenshot all of those apps and then I just have ChatGPT analyze it for me. Yep, and TRT obviously adds some water to it too. Yeah, like right now I'm like I said at the outset of this, I'm going off GLP-1, not with high expectations that I'm going to do better off of it. I want to do better from a mental health standpoint off of it. So far, check. I wanted to get off the medication so that I can ultimately go back on it at the right dose, much smaller dose than I was using. And I wanted to see, what does my body do when I take the GLP-1 away? Like, what's my diabetes doing? Just kind of a check-in, and I'm finding that my diabetes is pretty easy to control with diet still. And so I don't have to have the medication in terms of controlling my blood sugars. Now, Mounjaro isn't even covered by my new plan. So right now I am actually on a marketplace plan, and I couldn't find a single marketplace plan for this year that covered Mounjaro for diabetics. So it's all Ozempic. So I have some Ozempic on hand because the insurance will fill it, but I'm not currently taking it. Remember to make your AI chats private in the settings and don't include personal info that isn't necessary. So the picture of the boil in the unfortunate spot is probably telling me somebody's looking at my boil. I hope that nobody's looking at my boil, not the boil. So Morlin is awesome. I've looked into that a little bit as well. I think that just to get back at humanity, I hit unprivate on all my ChatGPT chats because somebody else should share in this chaos. So yeah, make them private if you want, but if you want to give somebody a good time, leave it open. Heck, start posting. It reminds me of Creed Thoughts on The Office. Is anybody an Office fan in the house? I know Hambone is because we basically just quote Office back and forth to each other all day long. But there's an episode where Creed, kind of the crazy old man in the office, somebody sets up a blog for him, and it's literally just like a Word document with a URL at the top called Creed Thoughts, and Creed posts all of his stuff. And I think it's Ryan who says, if you ever read Creed Thoughts, it's a lot, even for the internet. www.creedthoughts. Go see if that domain's available, Hambone. Are you going to stay on Zepbound from Lilly direct to stay on tirzepatide? Probably. I mean, I might go compound. I can probably get a good deal on compound because I work with telehealth companies. But we'll see. We'll see. Right now, I'm way less concerned about that right now than I am about getting these habits and capitalizing on how I'm feeling, so that when I do incorporate whatever I incorporate back, I'm very in touch with at what point the drug starts to affect me in a negative standpoint, from a lack of motivation, a lack of energy. Because listen, I felt really good when I started, but then you forget I slammed up to the 15 within 4 months. And so I don't even remember what it was like to feel on those lower doses, other than I felt really good. I felt better than I'd ever felt on those lower doses. But man, after when I got up to those upper doses, that's when I literally coined the phrase tirzepatide, because I literally in the middle of the afternoon felt like I could fall on my face asleep on the floor. And so tirzepatide was a real thing for me at those upper doses. But I know at the lower doses, I felt tremendous. And so I'm going to be bringing you some very interesting content in the coming weeks on the topic of dosing, and how I think that the pharmaceutical companies, I don't want to say that they've got it wrong, because I think what they've done on purpose, right? They're doing clinical trials for the masses. And they also want to show in a clinical trial that it's a dose-dependent drug, because they want you on higher doses, because higher doses mean the likelihood you'll stay on it. So they're trying to stay on it, meaning you'll need it to maintain your progress, right? But at the same time, I think there's probably a right amount for everybody, and that's what I'm trying to figure out for myself. But we're going to bring you some very interesting content, because I think what we get so concerned about the dose, and what we should be more concerned about is like how much of it is in our system, because that changes from week to week. It fluctuates, especially during periods of titrating up or down. If you miss a day or inject on a different day, that all messes with the concentration of the medication in your system. And some people can be very sensitive to that. I've learned that I'm very, very, very sensitive to medication, all ways, shapes, and forms. I'm very sensitive, but especially to medications that deal with hormones. I'm very sensitive to those. My body is very sensitive to them. Not like I'm crying about it, but my body is sensitive. I'm on the 15. Although some days I felt like that. I have chosen to go down in dosing due to side effects, and have gone back to compound. So more affordable given my insurance, but also can titrate extra slow. Yeah, Stephanie's super sensitive, she says, as well. So sometimes it do be like that for some of us. And for me, definitely it is that way. Thank you for hanging out with me today on this Monday. Of course, tomorrow, Tuesday, is our podcast. Every single Tuesday, we drop a podcast, and it's your weekly dose of all the news that is important for you to be on the up and up as a patient. I think we do a marvelous job here at the On the Pen doing that. We've done it now for 3.5 years. We are the leading podcast in GLP-1 news. We have about 170,000 strong of you across all platforms. So listen, if you want to help us continue to grow what we're doing here, this is a full-time gig for me. And so if you want to support the work that I do today, the very easiest way that you can support what I'm doing today is to go over to our podcast and give it a 5-star rating and review. You go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you watch your pod or listen to your podcasts. Scroll down until you see the stars and just give us 5 stars, and then you get extra credit if you leave a nice little note. I think about 10 of you did that last week. And so the more of you that can do that, that really helps to bump up the podcast in the algorithm. And so please, the easiest way to get there is just to go to otplinks.com. And then I think we link to our podcast there. So if you want to help me out here, I really would appreciate a 5-star rating and review on the podcast. Estrogen makes you obese and cry. I believe Can't Wait is giving me a little more energy, but I just take 1 capsule in the morning. I always have to watch my blood pressure issues. I'm going up in dose later this week, 10 milligram tirzepatide. Excellent, Becky. So you must have got the package that I sent you. So good deal. Miss Nikki, hi, how are you today? Good to have you here. Thanks for the updates, Dave. Hope your family gets and stays well. Appreciate that. And Creed thoughts for Hambone. That's right. Thank you, Ann and Dave, for the live chat. Have a great rest of your week. Yeah, thank you as well for hanging out with us, Becky. Really appreciate it. That is what I have today. I'm super grateful to each and every one of you, and really, really, really am so grateful to be able to do this each and every day. It gives me a lot of energy to wake up and know that I can bring you information that's going to empower you to have better conversations with your doctor. Really appreciate the community showing up and showing out every day for this. Of course, we will be we'll have a podcast drop tomorrow. We're going to have some really interesting stuff coming for you on the channel. Can't wait for that. Until the next one, we'll catch you on the next live stream. Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. Appreciate you.